and that is Reverend Roselia P. Matthews, our other co-chairman from Salem United Methodist Church in Pleasant. Reverend Matthews.
I must confess, at one of our meetings when we were putting a program together, I noticed that all men were being chosen to speak. And I raised my hand and I said, excuse me, could we at least have a woman? It doesn't have to be God is no respecter of person, male or female. We are all children of God. On 9/11, Americans and perhaps many around the world watched in horror as United Airlines Flight 11 and American Airlines Flight 175 deliberately crashed into the World Trade Center. And then United Airlines Flight 93, which was meant to crash into the Pentagon, crashed into Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And later on we found out that 19 terrorists who were followers of Osama bin Laden, the founder of Al-Qaeda rather, agreed upon the suicide mission. Now, one thing I began to realize after this, many of us began to come together and love one another and support one another, but then I also began to realize that there became a hate and a fear of Muslims, and that they began to be ostracized. Now, as a Christian, we are told not to judge, because judgment belongs to God. But we do have a right to observe. And if we observe, we have to acknowledge that it is not all Muslims that are evil. That it was a small selected group, which I call renegades, who stepped outside the law of God to take matters into their own hands. And if we're honest with ourselves, we have to acknowledge that within the Catholic faith and the Christian faith and the Jewish faith and many other faiths, you will find evil. But yet we also have to say it is not all of us. And one of the things that I really appreciate about the Bridges of Faith is that whether we are Catholic, Jewish, Protestant, Muslim, we all come together and we believe that we serve the same God, but one thing that is important to each of us is that we do not compromise our faith. And that is because we understand one another, that we are all children of God with the same purpose, to bring us all together the way God would have us to be, because after all, whether you believe or not, we are all created by the same God. And Muslims and Jewish and Christians and Catholics, we all serve the same God. So there should never be any division between God's people. But what I want to say to you, and I want you to think about this seriously, is where does that leave us when it comes to Muslims? Has our hearts changed? Have we begun to understand that it's not all Muslims? Have we begun to understand that there is a difference in the teaching of those who step outside of God's will? We have to learn, and I know it's very difficult, according to the words of Jesus, not to be afraid, not to hate, but to love. And I know that is so difficult. And I won't pretend that we should jump into it right away. And I understand that it is a process, but it is a process that we all must go through if we're ever going to experience the peace, if our children are ever going to grow up and become one and understand one another, regardless of their ethnicity, their culture, or their faith. If we don't do something about it, then it will continue to carry on. Then what will happen to our children and our children's children? Think about those of you who have children and grandchildren. It would just break my heart to see my grandchildren hating other people simply because they're different, out of fear of the unknown. So therefore, we have a responsibility to teach. And I'm so grateful that Colleen Shabazz is always open to come and teach us whereby we can understand the faith of Muslims. Just as Rabbi Krause has also extended that same offer. And I hope that you will take them up on it. This is a time that our hearts are sorrowful. In closing, when I watched the remembrance service on television this morning on Ground Zero, my heart began to break and I began to cry. Because they showed the pictures of those who had perished. And I sat there and I said, evil does not discriminate. It does not discriminate against ethnicity, against culture, against age, against one's level of education, financial situation. It just does not discriminate. And we cannot allow evil to have power over us. Because we know that we serve a God who's all powerful. And I know some of us must be wondering, well, what's the answer? Why did God let this happen? This is where our faith has to come in. Because there are going to be times when situations happen and there will be no answer. But yet we will continue to trust God. To believe that God will take us and comfort us in His arms. As we should comfort one another. Not only during these times, but any times when one of our brothers and sisters are in pain. I thank you all for coming out today. It shows your care, and if you were able to see what I see, it's a beautiful array of people. And that's what we should all look like. Not just today, but every day. Thank you.